Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Rick with Points Hawk and I'm glad to have you back for another video. This time we've got a really cool trip. We've got a couple that's planning their honeymoon in March of next year to fly from the Phoenix area to New Zealand. Now, this is going to be a tricky one, but let's just go ahead and run through the details first, and then I'll explain why this is going to be a little bit more complex. So, first of all, they're going to be starting in Phoenix, but they are definitely willing to position to just about anywhere in order to get a good deal. They're ultimately flying to Auckland, New Zealand. The dates are March 20th through April 11th, but they're willing to do 3 to 5 days earlier and 3 to 5 days later. Their goal is to get about 3 to 3.5 weeks for this honeymoon experience there. There's going to be 2 travelers. The newly married couple will be the ones going to New Zealand. For points, one person has 145,000 points and the other person has 196,400 chase points, for a total of 341,400 chase points. They have 94,700 Bilt points for one person and 55,000 Bilt points for the other person, so a total of 149,700 Bilt points to work with. One of them has 163,300 Capital One miles, and then finally they've got one of them has 116,200 American AAdvantage miles that they can work with here. For priorities, their number one priority is comfort. They would like to be able to fly business class at least one direction if they can. Obviously, the more the better as far as that goes, but they really want to make that a big part of their honeymoon experience. Second priority is going to be the best points deal that they can get. Third priority is going to be keeping lowest cash, so they're not as concerned about that. And finally, their lowest priority is convenience. They are willing to position where they want to. Again, they want to be able to get the best experience and make this actually part of the honeymoon experience. So they're less concerned about minimizing the layovers and minimizing the locations as much as they are about just having a good trip when they're flying over there. The total round-trip price for 2 people is between $8,500 for premium economy seats to $16,000 for business class seats for both individuals. So it's a lot there. Now, I will tell you that this is going to be tough because there are far fewer flights that are going to the New Zealand, Australia area. You'll sometimes hear that referred to as Oceania. It's just harder to get there than it is to places like Europe, which has a lot of different flights and a lot of different airlines that fly there. There's not even really any good positioning options to get to New Zealand or Australia from places like Southeast Asia. Any place you go to in Southeast Asia, think like Singapore, Tokyo, any of those places, it's still going to take about 9 to 10 hours from there to get to Australia or New Zealand. So it's not really a great positioning location to get to, unfortunately. That said, with a little creativity, we may be able to find something. Now, quick reminder, by the time this video comes out, these flights likely won't be available anymore because I do try to make them available to the individuals that it's for. So you just keep this in mind. Use this for inspiration for your own flights. All right, let's see what we can find. Okay, we're going to try to search for Phoenix to New Zealand first. The trick with New Zealand, as I mentioned, it's not going to be easy to find. It's just the way that works with these flights. But we'll see what's available out there point-wise, and then we'll start to add in some complexities and see what we can find. We'll start with seats.aero as usual. I'll go ahead and plug in Phoenix, and then Phoenix to Auckland, New Zealand, and just see what's there. We'll expand out. Actually, what I'll do instead of Auckland directly, Seats.aero has a option where you can search for Australia and New Zealand large airports. And so we'll actually expand out to that. Because if we can get down to the Oceania area, then it's a lot easier to work with. Date-wise, they are looking at March 20th, but they said they could do a couple of days earlier. So we will start with now that those days are right at the end of the week there. We'll start there, but then we'll back it up because honestly our best options are probably going to come earlier in that week, and they did say 3 to 5 days in advance they could make that work. But let's start with the 19th and then the 18th. Actually, what I might do is we'll just add 3 days. No, we'll back it up. We'll keep it to 1 day on either side for right now, just so we limit the number of search results that we get. Honestly, finding economy seats is not the problem. It's the premium seats are going to be more complex to find. So, but they did say they were going to be much more open to different paths to get there if we can make that happen. So we'll, if we can't find something, which I don't have a lot of hope for reasonably priced business class seats, if we can't find that this way, we'll add in a couple of interesting complexities and see what we can find. Now, interestingly, wasn't expecting to find anything, but we might have something here with AAdvantage. Now, that would be American Airlines. The trick is that that's 80,000 points, and that's not going to cover both of them. They don't have enough American points. They only had about 116,000 American points. So, but that's interesting that that's there. Let's just see what option it gives us, because then we could look for some other possibilities there. So in this situation, you're going to, oh, this is not great. It's a, starting out in Phoenix, flying to Ontario, then they've got to, no, not Ontario, sorry. Well, it is Ontario, but it's Ontario, California, not to be confused with Ontario, Canada. But then they would need to get from Ontario International Airport in Los Angeles, basically, to LAX, and that's not going to be an easy transit. So this is not a great option for them, and then they would be able to continue on from Sydney from there. So that is a Qantas flight that's LAX to Sydney. That's just an interesting thing. We might have to look and see if we can find that flight separately, because that could be something, especially if that maybe shows up in some other points availability, other One World partners that might be able to do the same program. Outside of that, everything else is pretty much unavailable. Actually, we'll even just expand this out, because I think I just have that as one. How many seats do we have there? Does it tell us? It does not. With 2 seats, that AAdvantage is still showing up there. But again, it's not a great option because you've got that transit and they don't have enough points for that anyway. So let's expand out our search and see if we can find some from other West Coast or other larger airports that might have some openings. Again, I don't have a lot of hope for this, but it's worth checking. Okay, I expanded it out to all of the West Coast as well as the Midwest major airports. Still looking to try to find anything in Australia or New Zealand at major airports there. Still on the same dates that we're looking at there with 2 seats. The only thing, if they had more points, they've got a couple of Atmos options for 130,000 points per person. That's okay, but the problem is they've only got about for Bilt, which is the only program they've got that will transfer to Atmos, they've got about 150,000 points total. So that's not going to be enough for both of them. Interestingly, this is Philippine Airlines. It's a new partner for Atmos, so I guess that's not entirely surprising that that's a little bit available at this point. Still, not going to be one that they've got enough points to cover both of them. Beyond that, we got Qantas, but everything else is just kind of out of reach at this point. Not surprising, but it was worth checking just to see if we could make this easy. There are a couple of premium economy options. The one in particular that pops up here is with United from San Francisco to Brisbane, Australia. And again, not a hard hop from there to get over to New Zealand if we could get there and everything. That's 70,000, which honestly is not terrible. I know if you're used to European travel, it's going to feel like a lot, but to get to literally the entire other side of the world with limited flights that are available that way, that's really not that bad. What's nice about this one is that this is a direct flight. Obviously, they would have to position to San Francisco, but then that would be a non-stop on United to get over there. Those does look like they got plenty of seats, so we'll actually check that out. That could be an option. They actually have, that would be from Chase that they'd be working with there, and they've got plenty of points there. They've got about 300, just under 350,000 points total with Chase. So they've definitely got enough to cover this if this is something they want to do. So we're gonna put this aside and come back and check this to see if that's still available. Other plans that are on here, Sky Miles, they don't have any American Express points. That's not going to be something they can use. Velocity is an Australian, it's kind of Virgin Australia, so that's not something that they have any transferable options to. I can actually limit these to just the programs they've got. They've got Chase, Bilt, and Capital One. So if I back those down to just those programs, that will simplify what we see. And again, just you've got Qantas there, but that's way more points for premium economy than is worthwhile. I went ahead and searched a couple more days, backing it up a little bit since they did have the flexibility to fly out a few days before the 20th. Again, looking at West Coast and Midwest major airports to anything in Sydney or New Zealand, but just backed it up a few more days just to see. Business class, once again, just not really any great options for them. They're just really, really expensive. Premium economy, when I look at that, there is a little bit more availability with that with those United plans, so we'll check that out as well. This one in particular, the San Francisco to Sydney, could be worth checking out. Same pricing that we saw before, 70,000 points, plenty of seats, and about $37 in taxes and fees. But that is certainly a possibility. As far as why we're looking at Sydney as a possibility, if they can get to Sydney, getting from there to New Zealand is only about a 3-hour hop at that point, which compared to everything else is really not that bad. All right, so we didn't really find any business class options at this point. We still want to try to see if we can find something. I will just note that the initial thought would be that we'll just position to somewhere else in Southeast Asia maybe, and then fly from there to Australia. That is an option. The trick is that let's just take from the flight, a nonstop flight from LAX to Auckland, New Zealand. That's going to be about just under a 13-hour flight, about a 13-hour flight in order to make that happen. Trick is that because of just where Australia and New Zealand are placed, it's not going to help a lot to fly just about anywhere else in the Southeast Asia area. Just some examples: from Tokyo to New Zealand, nonstop, over 10 hours. For Singapore, that might be another one. You think of that, where that is, if you see that on a map, from Singapore to New Zealand is just under 10 hours, 9 hours and 40 minutes approximately. So there's just not a lot of great places that you can get to easily to then make a short hop. It's just not a short hop at that point. Even if you fly to Honolulu, to Hawaii, and then go from there to Auckland, New Zealand, it's still 9 hours from there. So it's just not a short flight to get from just about anywhere to New Zealand or Australia. The only difference is the only options that you've really got for that are if you look at Fiji. Fiji's one. In that situation, it's just over 3 hours. Or Tahiti is the other one. If you fly into Tahiti or PPT airport, that's about 6 hours. So still not great, but that's better. Obviously, Fiji is better. But again, there's just not a ton of flights from the U.S. into those locations. So premium cabins are harder to find. They're just going to be much more difficult to find. So we'll still take a look at those and just see, but I don't have a lot of great hope that those are going to work out well. Looking at anything from the West Coast or the Midwest into Tahiti or Fiji, business class, there's only Atmos is the only one showing up there, but they just don't have enough Bilt points to cover both of them to make that happen, so that's out. Premium's not really any better. Actually, it's worse. 150,000 is direct, but still on the Atmos at that point. So unfortunately, those are not really great options as well. Now, the other possibility, and this is where people don't oftentimes think about this, but it can actually be useful to fly, thinking about the fact that this is basically on the other side of the world, essentially, to fly to Europe and then fly from Europe to Australia or New Zealand. And sometimes you can find better opportunities there, especially when you think about things like Qatar Airways. From Doha, there are definitely flights from Doha. Sometimes you can even get the Q Suites business class options there, so that's worth checking out. So there are a few different other options there. So we'll take a look at some options in Europe and see if we can find any business class possibilities that could be an option for them if they wanted to. Okay, we've expanded our scope looking at Europe to Australia and New Zealand. And again, we're going to focus this time on business class only. Premium economy, which there aren't great options for anyway, but in order to position to Europe, you better make it worthwhile, basically. But if we can find a really, really cool business class opportunity, then that could be worth it to them. So what we did from a search perspective is we're looking at all major airports in Europe, again to Australia or New Zealand. Again, premium economy is just not going to be great options there no matter what. But when we look at business class, there are some interesting things. Now, the AAdvantage one, they've only got 116,000 AAdvantage miles to deal with. So they don't have enough for both of them. But what this does start to tell us is that there are certain things that, again, we may have some partner programs that we're not seeing here that we could look up and see if there's any possibility here. This one, for example, Helsinki to Melbourne. Helsinki would suggest that it's probably Finnair as a starting airline, but I'm wondering, because I don't think that's going to go all the way to Australia. You can see here that this is telling us that there are Q suites. Well, not Q suites, but Qatar. It might be Q suites. There's Qatar Airways is on here. Now, when I check this out, we don't necessarily. This one doesn't have Q suites per se that we can tell. Usually in seats.aero, it will show that as a bed in like a little room. So we don't have that, but it's still business class option here. But we do have some Qatar Airways options here that could be a possibility as well. Now, I'm not saying we want to fly into Helsinki, but we might be able to start looking in Doha and go there and see if we can find anything. And then how do we get to Doha, essentially, from Phoenix to make that happen? So we've got some possibilities here. There's a lot of Qatar Airways options here. We've got Barcelona to Melbourne, Barcelona to Perth. All of those are listed as 90,000. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that we'll go and see if we can find this on Qatar side, but Qatar Airways has made redeeming award flights with them much more complicated than it used to be. In order to qualify to be able to redeem Qatar Airways Avios for award flights through Qatar, you would have to have your Qatar Airways program open for at least 30 days. And at least one flight credited to Qatar's program. You could fly an American Airlines from within the United States and just credit that not to AAdvantage but credit to Qatar, since they're both One World Airlines. So those are just, you would have to have those in place, and then you would have to add certain individuals. If you're just going to be more than one person, you'd have to add somebody else to something called their list in order to make that possible. So it's super annoying. There are other ways, if we can find availability with Qatar through other programs like British Airways, for example, then that could open up the door to getting those seats booked and getting a really, really cool experience if we can get them to Europe to fly from there to Australia or New Zealand. So anyway, let's just do some hunting around and see if we can find something in any of those programs. All right, so I expanded out. So I went to British Airways, which doesn't show up on seats.aero, and I searched from Doha to a couple of different locations. Primarily Melbourne and Brisbane are where Qatar Airways flies, are a couple places that are easier to find things. And interestingly, so on actually the 17th, 18th, and 19th, we've got some availability from nonstop from Doha to Melbourne with Qatar, and business class, 2 seats each of those days. And as far as pricing goes, when I go into that, for British Airways Avios, we're looking at, for 2 people, again, we're looking at 140,000 Avios and $524 in taxes and fees. That is an excellent deal. So it's basically 70,000 Avios per person in order to fly from Doha to Melbourne for a really, really long flight. And it's possible that these are in Q suites. Let's see if we can figure that out. Looking back at seats.aero, I pulled up that flight that we were looking at through British Airways, and sure enough, this is a Q Suites product right here. It's interesting because there's a whole nother history. I'm not going to get into this here, but there is an agreement between Virgin Australia and Qatar in order to make this possible. But this is great because this could be a really, really cool experience here. We're talking about over 14 hours in Q Suites for 2 people for 70,000 points per person. Again, I'm looking at that on the British Airways side. That's crazy good. So now let's see if we can figure out a way to get them to Doha in a relatively comfortable place where they would actually have points to be able to make that happen as well. Okay, to get us to Doha, one of the options that we can find is we can try to get them. I wanted to try to find business class, but one cool option I found was from Detroit to Istanbul, nonstop, flying Turkish Airlines. Now, since they've got points like Capital One miles that can transfer over, 65,000 miles per person. They've got 2 left at this price. It's a nonstop. I'm having them look at flying over on the 17th so that they get there on the 18th. And then their other flight would not be until the 19th. So that would give them 1 night overnight to stay there. Of course, they'd have to position themselves from Phoenix to Detroit, but that shouldn't be too hard to do. Again, if this is something they're interested in doing, this is definitely possible. 65,000 miles per person and about $300 in taxes and fees per person. But once you get to Istanbul, it's just a quick hop over to Doha. So it's really not that hard to make that happen. So this is definitely an option. We'll share this as one possibility if they really want to fly business class on the way, one way or the other. This is one way out in order to make that happen. A little complex, but convenience was not their number one priority. So we'll pull that together as well as some of the pricing for positioning to see what that looks like for them and give them that as an option. For the return trip, I tried to look at any flights from the Australia-New Zealand area straight home. Unfortunately, there just wasn't really any good options there. I even looked to see if I could find the same Q suites or Qatar Airways business class option back. There just wasn't available. So again, kind of spread it out a little bit further to see if I could find anything from like Tahiti or Fiji. Fiji, to see if we could get there from one of those locations instead. And as you can see here, business class, there's still just not good availability here for anything that's a decent price. Interestingly, in premium economy, however, around on the 14th, so this is maybe a little bit further out than they would have wanted, but it's still not too far off. So hopefully this could be a possibility for them. We've got a potential for a direct flight. This is Flying Blue, so this is Air France actually. It's kind of a Fifth Freedom flight. It's not entirely a Fifth Freedom flight because it's actually a flight that's coming in to LAX and then continuing on and then going back again. And actually, it counts as a French colony or something. I don't know the details with that. But anyway, all that to say, it's not technically a Fifth Freedom flight, but it works. So, but anyway, we've got an Air France nonstop from PPT to LAX in premium economy for 67,500 points, which is really not bad. I checked it out and it is there, as you can see. What's nice is it's not that much more expensive than the economy for the two. So for 2 flights as well. Now they'll want to book these pretty soon because very soon Air France is going to be making some changes where their cheaper prices are going to be changed up. They're going to have like a basic version of premium economy, and the regular version is going to cost more. It's just not going to be great. A little bit of a devaluation there. But anyway, this is definitely a way to get there. So then we've just got to get from Australia, New Zealand area to PPT, and if we can do that for a decent thing, then we might have a really good trip home. Searching for this one, and once again we're searching from the Australia, New Zealand area to PPT. We need to back it up a little bit. So looking at the 13th, seeing if we can find something there. We could back it up a little bit more if we needed to, but there is a direct flight using AAdvantage miles. Now, fun little fact, Tahiti, if I'm guessing this is right, Tahiti Airlines, and I think I'm saying them wrong, but anyway, they actually use AAdvantage miles. So America's Airlines currency, they use the same currency. So you can find it very easily by searching American Airlines. There's a premium economy one for 25,000 or business for 30,000. Now, this is going to be a lie flat seat. And what's interesting about this, check this out. This is an overnight. It's almost 7-hour flight for 30,000 points plus about $90 in cash. That is totally worth it. They'd be able to sleep overnight. They would get to PPT. It would be a pretty short turnaround. It's about 2 hours between this. So there's a little bit of risk there, but I think it would be worthwhile to then get on that Air France flight nonstop to LAX. So just confirm that that's there, and if it is, then I think we've got a good flight home. And yes, when we searched on American Airlines for Sydney to PPT, April 13th for 2 people, we've got those options. There's that premium economy, but we don't need that. We want that nice business class. 5,000 more points, that's totally worth it. And they've got the American Airlines points to make that happen. So they could book this. That'll, again, give them a nice overnight rest in a lie-flat seat, and then premium economy from there back the rest of the way home. So yeah, that should work really, really well to get them home. Well, that took some searching, but I think we actually found some things that are going to work for them. Let's go ahead and run through the recommendations and see what we found. For Outbound, we are going to see if we can offer the business class options, just because that was such a priority for them. They really wanted to maximize their comfort. So we're going to offer them the Detroit, the DTW to IST, the Istanbul, on March 17th, flying Turkish business class to get over there. And then from Istanbul to Doha on March 18th, flying Turkish economy, just as a short little flight. And then finally, from Doha to Melbourne, Australia on 3/19, flying Qatar, but not just any Qatar business class, Q Suites. And that's going to be booked through British Airways rather than dealing with any of the insanity of trying to book it through Qatar Airways itself. Now, this is going to require a couple of positioning flights, getting from Phoenix to Detroit. However, I was able to find a really good use of AAdvantage miles for that as well, so we can decrease the cash cost a little bit more by using some points to position to Detroit. But then they'll also need to position, they can use that. There's a great flight for 10,000 points and $6 each to get that to happen. I pulled that into the totals as well. But then they also will need to position from Melbourne to Auckland, which is, again, a very short little flight to get over there, so that's pretty reasonable. At a trip this length, this really makes that travel part of the experience, so that's why we've got all those extra legs. But that Q Suites is such a highly coveted experience for many travelers. Very difficult to book. I guarantee it's going to make it a memorable experience for them when they do that. They can use Chase points for the British Airways bookings and Bilt for the Turkish flights as well as the Capital One miles. That's also available for that too. On the way home, we've got a flight from Sydney to PPT, so we're talking about Tahiti, on March 13th, flying Air Tahiti Nui business class. Nice lie-flat seats for the overnight trip there. And then flying from PPT to LAX on March 14th on Air France, that kind of fifth freedom flight in premium economy. Now, they'll have to position at the beginning from Auckland to Sydney and at the end from LAX to Phoenix, but I think those are pretty short flights and that should be pretty easy to do. They got some good comfort, including lie flat for 7 hours of that trip home, so that's really, really nice. They can book with American Airlines, plus both Chase, Bilt, and Capital One points. All of those will be able to work together in order to make that possibility. For estimated positioning flights, after I calculated the different cash positioning flights we were looking at there, they'd need about $1,100 for both of them. For total points, we're looking at a total of $519,000 for both individuals for the entire trip. That includes 80,000 American AAdvantage miles, 164,000 Turkish miles that are coming from Capital One or Bilt, 140,000 British Airways miles that can come from Chase, Capital One, or Bilt, and then 135,000 Air France Flying Blue miles that can also come from Chase, Capital One, or Bilt. For a total out of pocket, we're looking at, after including taxes and fees and the positioning flights, we're looking at about $3,200, which with that, if you remember back that round trip cash cost for two, we were saying $16,000 for business class. This is going to be mostly business class, but we'll take off a couple of $1,000 because we do have some premium economy flight in there. So let's say approximately $14,000 for the two individuals. But that means we're still saving about $10,800, which translates to a 77% savings, which is amazing. So this is going to be a great trip. I'm hopeful that they'll have a great time. And again, I think those flights will just add to their overall experience. What I'd love to ask you to do, so now it's time for you to get involved. Where are you interested in traveling? I've shared a bunch of different trips that have been worked on with others, but I'd love to do some trips that maybe you're interested in. If you've got anything in mind, you can share in the comments of the video a flight that you're interested in seeing, include the dates, what points you'd be interested in using. I might be able to do a video for yours so that you can see some ideas. I wouldn't rely on my video to book yours, but at least then you can get an idea of how you might approach something like that. The other thing I'd ask for you to do, if you've liked this video, if you'd like to see more of these, please be sure to like, subscribe, click any of the buttons. Again, comment if you've got any ideas for trips you'd like to see me run through, and that just helps the channel and helps get it out there so others can learn to use their miles and points more effectively. As you can tell, I'm a fan of Seats.aero. I use it a lot at the beginning when I'm starting to search for something. And if you're interested in trying out the Pro version, I have an affiliate link in the description of this video, as well as on my channel. If you'd be willing to use that to sign up, that would just help me out as well. If you're new to this and you're feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe this is just not your jam, you don't want to do all that research yourself, or maybe you're new to it and it's just not feeling confident in finding those flights and transferring those points, check out my website at pointshawk.com. And you can reach out to me, you can connect to me through that, and I can help you with your trip, either doing the research or even possibly walking side by side with you to make those transfers happen. Until next time, good luck hunting those flights.